Welcome back to the Punchline Marketing Podcast, where we're not afraid to say what everybody else is thinking in the marketing world. My name is Beth Cormack. I am going to be your solo host today. Normally, I am joined by my lovely co-host, Drew, but due to just some scheduling stuff, we're going to be doing a solo episode today. So normally we have a pretty polished intro to our episodes, and we try to put together some sort of semblance of an outline just to keep us kind of on track and on flow. But I'm going to be so for real with you. I tried writing one. I tried kind of structuring this episode, but I couldn't. It was really hard for me to, and not just because of my ADHD, but just because of the topic itself. I have tried recording this episode 5 or 6 times now. I've tried to sit down here alone in the office that I barely use and try to, sound like I'm put together and try to sound more prepared, but it didn't come out right. And it just felt very inauthentic to me and my story and what I'm going to talk about in this episode. So a couple of episodes ago, we talked about layoffs in the marketing industry. And this is going to kind of be a part 2 to that in a way, but it's going to be a lot more personal. It's going to dive into my story. And I feel like this is a great opportunity for me to tell you just like the real raw story of what the fuck the last 6 months has been like for me as someone who is currently unemployed and searching for full-time work and really just like in the trenches of it. Like I said, it's not going to be organized this episode. It's going to probably be all over the place. I'm going to do my best to not go on silly tangents or, I'm going to try to make it somewhat be listenable, but I can't make any promises. But my main goal of this episode is not only to, again, like tell the real honest just story of what I've been going through and what so many other people are going through who are also unemployed, but also get real with myself, because I think I have fallen victim to a toxic positive mindset and trying to convince myself that I'm okay, that I will come out on the other side of this, that the right opportunity will come along eventually. Told myself all these narratives time and time again. And in this moment, being completely honest, I don't know those things. And there might be periods of this episode where I start to cry, where it's already starting. I told myself I wouldn't cry, which is probably why I should have an outline. But this is what I'm going through. So if you are unemployed, if you're willfully employed, or I don't know, you want to listen to a train wreck ahead, then tune in. But I think this, like every other episode, we say that this is going to be therapeutic for me. And I hope, it's therapeutic to you in some way, even if you're not unemployed, but if you're just going through something difficult or a big change or a big transition in your life. I hope that you can take something from this, even if it's just a sense of community and a sense of feeling that you're not alone in this. So all that being said, let's get this episode rolling. Okay. So, I may repeat myself. I may say some things that I've said in previous episodes, and I'm going to try not to, but I also think that's okay, because a lot of the things I'm about to say I think are nice reminders, and they're also just like a part of my story. And when I talk on this podcast for an hour a week, it's bound to happen where I'm repeating something that I said. I hope I don't do it too much. I'm trying to be more specific and, I guess, honest in this episode. Not that I haven't been honest, but I think the more time that I spend thinking about my mental health and where I'm at, I'm just becoming more honest with myself. And like I said earlier, I'm not okay. I'm not okay. This past 6 months has been extremely difficult for me and my mental health, and there's a lot of factors that go into that. So I think, the best way to start this episode is maybe just to start from the beginning and kind of tell you when I got laid off, how I got laid off, what happened. I'm a little nervous to tell this story. There's going to be some details that I'm going to leave out, for purposes I can't really talk about, but we're going to try to be as honest as we can. So I have been laid off since October 31st of 2024. I did not see it coming. I knew that the company wasn't doing great, just based on the all hands meetings that we had. So I've said this in previous episodes, but about a year in August of 2023, I was also laid off from a different company. That one, I was kind of already one foot out the door, and I was ready for a new opportunity, but I was scared to jump to a new opportunity for a few different reasons. But when I got laid off, it was kind of expected, honestly, and it was more of a gentle shove versus my previous layoff back in October, where I really felt like I was shoved out. I did not expect it. I did not see it coming. I wasn't ready mentally. I had just kind of like, I had moved across the country like 6 months before that. I was still kind of settling in, and I have ADHD, so I have a really hard time just like reorganizing and restructuring my life. So I was just kind of finally feeling like I was settling in Chicago. And then that happened. I was also going through a difficult time in my relationship, my past relationship, we're now since broken up. And I was trying to figure all that out. And, I wasn't mentally ready to be laid off. And not only that, I was laid off on October 31st. So I've got on, sorry, I'm rambling or all over the place. Let me tell you about that day. So I woke up like any other day, started work. I had a meeting with my former manager already booked on my calendar for like a project that I was working on. And I can't remember the exact details, but for some reason it was like pushed back. I was told that it was like pushed back 30 minutes or something. So I get on the call. It was my manager and an HR, the person in HR. And so I kind of knew what was happening as soon as the call started. I was told that my position was eliminated, effective immediately. And I was just kind of standing there with the blank face because, what are you supposed to say in that moment? It was about 11:50 in the morning, I remember. And the biggest concern that I had, I was told about my severance package and all that stuff, but the biggest thing on my mind, as it always is my health insurance. I am a type 1 diabetic. As you may or may not know, being a type 1 diabetic in this country is very expensive. Insulin, the cost of my like Dexcom and insulin pump supplies, it's a lot of money. And so the first question that came out of my mouth, and I think probably the only question, was about health insurance. And I asked them if I was losing my health insurance that day as well, to which they said yes. So that's when I started to cry, because now I had less than a day to figure out my health insurance. And because, like I said, I was just kind of acclimating myself to Chicago and getting all that stuff transferred over. I had finally found a therapist I really liked. I had finally found an endocrinologist I really liked. And when you have a chronic condition, having a team of doctors that you really trust and building that community around your health is so fucking important, because this disease is so debilitating, not just physically, but especially mentally. Like, it's really, really fucking hard. And as you know, health insurance and just the healthcare industry in this country is stressful as is. So I'd finally feel settled in that department. And then suddenly now I am losing my health insurance. I had less than a day. So as soon as I got off the call, I didn't even really have time to mourn the loss of my job. I had to call my doctors. Luckily, I was able to get like virtual appointments booked with them the same day. And I was able to pick up my medications that day before it ended at midnight. And so I spent the entire afternoon scrambling, running around town, talking to my doctors, picking up my medication, getting as much supplies as I could, because I, didn't know when I was, I don't know. I needed to, I had to, because come June 1st, I was going to have to get on Cobra, and Cobra, as some of you know, is very expensive. Went from paying, I think I paid like $100 for my premium at my last employer to over $650. And that was not including my copays or anything. So that was the biggest stress for me. And it was also right before the holidays. So I knew that no one was going to be hiring for the holidays. I will say the first 3 weeks of my unemployment, I had really good traction. The last time I was laid off, I found a new job within a month. So I had this mindset going in of like, oh, no problem. I'm good at this. I can find a job within a month. It won't be a problem. And I did. I didn't, but I had good traction going in. I had several final round interviews booked out for November before the holidays, and obviously none of them panned out. And then the holidays came, and I was just like, you know what, I'm going to take the next like month and a half to just relax and be with family and just kind of take some time off. But I think what a lot of people have told me in the past, and something that I just can't relate to, is like, oh, just take the time off that you need, just relax, like don't jump into your next opportunity. Like, I don't have that luxury. I do not have that luxury, not only just from like a healthcare perspective, but also just financially. Like, I just don't. I like need to be hustling the moment that I lose a job, or else bills are going to be coming and I need to be able to pay them. And, I will say, like, I'm privileged in the sense of I have a really, really supportive family that would never, ever let me like go under. And I'm so grateful for that. But I'm 32 years old and I don't want to rely on them. I want to be my own person. And I've always always been such a hard worker. Like my parents have always instilled that in me from a very young age of like, my parents both grew up in poverty and they worked so hard to get themselves out of it and give my sister and I a very good life. So we were always conditioned to work hard for what we have and be grateful for what we have. And my whole life I've always just hustled. Like if you ask anybody, like my first half of my career when I worked for myself, I had like 7 different jobs at one time because that's just the person that I was and the person that I still am. But these last 6 months, have found it really hard to even find the motivation to get a part-time job because there's this balance of like, okay, I need to be making money, but I also need to be, searching for a full-time opportunity. And it's just this really difficult balance that, as also being someone with ADHD, it makes it really difficult to juggle all of that and manage all of that. So like I kind of alluded to earlier, my relationship was kind of already on the rocks when I had gotten laid off. I remember I went downstairs and told him that I had gotten laid off and I was obviously crying and really upset. And he, consoled me for 5 or 10 minutes. And then he said, I'm going to go to the gym. And I was like, okay, all right, I guess I'll just deal with this on my own. And he would go to the gym for like 3 to 4 hours at a time. So I was like, okay, I'm really just dealing with this on my own. Great. And at that moment, when he did that, I was like, this relationship is over. It's over. It's done. I didn't break up with him that day, but I just knew in my head, like that was the end of it. And then 2 weeks later, we broke up. So not only was I dealing with just like, again, transitioning to moving to a new part of the country, and I didn't really have a lot of friends here at first. And my ex at the time didn't really have any interest in building community here. So I was like, really felt kind of alone. And then, dealing with that, I got laid off. I lost my health insurance. I went through a breakup and then right into the holidays. So the holidays is always just a crazy time. And so I was just very, very overstimulated with all the change that was happening. And it was difficult. And then, so I didn't really start job hunting again until like end of January. And I'm still at this point, I have this, I guess, false confidence in myself that I'll be able to find something. And, again, I had some good traction and I was feeling good. I was getting first round interviews, final round interviews, and just nothing came to be. A lot of them, I think this has happened to me 5 times where I've gone through an interview process and they've just pulled the job entirely. I've gotten flat out rejected from several jobs and I have been doing everything that I was doing the last time I was laid off. And again, I had convinced myself that I was good at this, that I was good at networking, that I'm talented and I'm able and, I have a great personality and would be an asset to any team. And I still think that about myself, but the more time that goes on, the more that I start to question that. And I become more distant from the hard work that I had put into my career. So I feel like when I'm talking to people about what I do, I downplay it a little bit. And I never used to be like that. I used to be so confident in what my abilities were and what I can offer and what I bring to the table. I have a very, I would say, different type of skill set from a lot of people just because I was running my own companies the first half of my career and was really just a hustler. Being an entrepreneur and having that type of background and being a hustler and being, having a lot of things that cannot be reflected on a resume, that was my superpower in interviews. And it really was. And I'm starting to question if, that was, again, just like a false confidence, right? And so now here we are, it's June. I still don't have a job. I have a couple of prospects in the works, but I've been at the mercy of other people's timelines, and those timelines have seemed to drag on. I've had several intro calls with founders and CEOs of companies, and a lot of them are either looking for freelance work or they don't know what they're looking for, and that's all okay. I'm grateful to have the opportunity to talk to them, but it's just been a lot of getting my hopes up and things just aren't moving in the direction that I want them to be moving. And people always ask me, how are you staying so positive through this process? I think a lot of it is just my personality. I think when you talk to me, whether it's, on a Zoom call or a networking call or in person, I am a very bubbly, friendly, kind, upbeat person. I'm very extroverted. So I think oftentimes the way that I come across to people is not exactly how I'm feeling. It's been hard. I think I've had more bad days than good days the last few months. And this podcast has, like I've said before many times, it's been a saving grace for me in a lot of ways where I've been able to sit down and talk through these things with people, with the audience and with you guys and whoever wants to listen, and getting these words off of my chest has been really helpful. But it's also not paying the bills, and not all passion projects do. And that's okay. I'm going to continue to do this podcast. I'm going to continue to work with Drue, who has been such an amazing asset and addition to my life. But, like I said at the beginning of the episode, like, I'm not doing well. Next month, I don't know if I'm going to be able to afford my Dexcoms anymore, which are, for those who aren't familiar, it's a CGM, which is a continuous glucose monitor. It goes on your arm and it monitors my blood sugar so I don't have to prick my finger 5 times a day. But it's expensive. And I don't know if I'll be able to afford it. And that has been such a life-changing device for me. And I think a lot of just like the realities of being unemployed are starting to set in. I've been collecting unemployment now for a few months, but I know I'm on a time ticker for that too. And I'm starting to really, like, there's days where I have so much motivation and there's other days where I just don't have any. Like yesterday, I could not get off the couch. I was just in a shell of of my depression. And I have talked about this in, I think, our burnout episode back in 2020. That was like one of the most difficult times of my life. And I don't feel like I'm quite there yet, but I'm also realizing that depression has many different faces depending on the season of your life and how it shows up for you. And I'm definitely feeling like depression is showing a face, and I'm scared of it. And I'm scared that it's going to swallow me whole. I'm scared that the longer that this goes on, the more like hope that I'll lose in myself. And I told myself I wouldn't cry. Oh my God, stop crying. But it is really hard to continue to show up and not only continuing to show up for yourself, but continuing to show up for other people. And I feel like I am just disappointing myself. I'm disappointing others. I haven't lost complete confidence in the fact that, like, I know that I'm really fucking good at what I do. And I know that if any company just took a fucking chance on me, that I would do so good. I would be so good. I would crush it. And I know that. I still have that hope, which I'm so grateful that I still have that hope, but I'm nervous that that's going to go away too. And I don't know what more I can do in terms of just like job hunting. I know there's probably a lot more that I can do, but like how much more do I have the mental energy for? I don't know. And I don't cry or talk about this to get pity or, I don't want that. I know that I will figure it out one way or the other. If I have to go back and start bartending again, I will. I'm not above any sort of job because I know that bills have to be paid and life goes on even when I want it to slow down or just pause so I could catch up to it. But yeah, it's been really hard. I said this earlier in the episode, but I do feel like there's times where I'm falling into the trap of toxic positivity. Not to say being positive isn't a good thing, because I think it's needed in this process. But I do feel like a lot of the times I'm trying to convince others that I'm okay, and I'm trying to convince myself that I'm okay, and I'm not allowing myself to admit that I am not okay. And I think that's healthy to admit that too. It's healthy to feel all your feelings, but it's hard to admit that. It's hard to admit that you're like, you know what? I am not fucking okay. Like, I am stressed. There's not a day or a moment in the day that goes by that I am not thinking about being unemployed. And it's such a shot to my ego as somebody who, like I said, I've always worked really hard for what I have. And I've always been so sure of myself when it comes to my career. And I try not to, put so much stock into my worth based on where I'm at in my career. I do. Like, a lot of my self-worth is tied to my job and my career. And I know that's not the healthiest thing to do, but that's just the reality of it. I've always had a lot of pride in my work. And this has been the longest time period where I'm just feeling really lost and feeling really confused and feeling really like, what the fuck? Like, what is wrong with me? What the fuck is wrong with me? Like, am I not like creative enough? Am I not like smart enough? I see LinkedIn is infiltrated with a lot of people getting laid off, but then also a lot of people finding jobs. And I'm like, what? Like, why not me? Like, why not me? And I know like comparison is a thief of joy and all that stuff, but it doesn't make it any easier. So I know that the bulk of this episode has been me being really depressing and crying and basically reading to you my public diary. But I did want to spend a little bit of time talking about things that has helped things that have helped me avoid letting this unemployment depression swallow me whole. And I know we touched on this a couple of episodes ago, but there's a couple of additional things and other stuff that I want to reemphasize that has really helped me kind of, even though I've had a lot of fucking bad days and these don't always work, sometimes they do work. And I think that is better than nothing. And the first one is community. Find your fucking community. Hold on to your community. Lean on your community. That is so fucking important. Being honest with your friends, your family, on how you're feeling, on where you're at, and not trying to deal with it all on your own, especially on an emotional level. Like, that is so fucking important. And I think I've been doing a better job at that, but I think for a big part of this process, I have been kind of hiding really how I'm feeling because I never want to be a burden on people. I never want to feel like I'm a burden. But if they're really your true community and they're really people that care about you and worth sticking around or keeping in your orbit, they want to help you. They want to be there for you. They want to check in on you. And I cannot emphasize enough. I do not know where I would be without my friends, without my family, with even like my LinkedIn network, like the amount of supportive messages I have received and comments and things like that. Like that has really kept my mind in a more positive place when I do lean on them versus when I try to deal with things on my own. Like yesterday, when I was having a really bad depressive day, I shut down. And I didn't talk to anyone all day. And that was one of the lowest days I've had in a really long time. And when I track the patterns of when I have really low days, it's when I'm avoiding phone calls from my mom. It's when I'm not texting my friends back. It's when I'm skipping pickleball and avoiding things that are revolved around community. So that is one thing. And another thing I'm going to challenge you to do is find a passion project. It doesn't have to be anything that's like a super heavy lift. I understand that showing up for yourself is difficult enough. Never mind investing time into another project or a hobby. It doesn't have to be this like super intense thing. I want you to find something that it's like a lightweight thing that it's just easy for you to do and something that you want to be doing and something that after you do it, you don't feel tired, you feel refreshed and you feel like you're releasing some of the energy and putting it into something that you really care about. That can be pickleball. I love pickleball and that has been a really nice outlet for me. But I think what has been even bigger outlet for me is not only this podcast, but my Substack. Something that I'm really proud of myself for during this entire process has been that I've written more consistently than I have in years. If you know me outside of just this podcast, you know that I've always been a writer. I love to write. I've been, that is free therapy for me. I'm always writing in my journal. I love storytelling, whether it's, in my journal or online. I started my Substack in February, and I used to have a blog way back in the day, but I started a Substack in February, and I'm really proud to say that I have written at least once, usually twice per week, and posted on my Substack. And I don't have a lot of followers. I think I have like 50 subscribers. Obviously, it's not monetized, and I never plan to monetize it, but it has been the best outlet for me, and I'm just proud of myself. I look at it and I'm like, holy shit, Beth, like you have continually and consistently showed up for yourself on the Substack, and it makes me feel a really strong sense of pride. It also just makes me feel so much better whenever I write and whenever I get feedback from people being like, oh my gosh, so grateful that you wrote about this. I relate to it so much. That brings me a sense of peace that nothing else does. So I encourage you to do the same. It doesn't have to be a Substack, obviously, but find something where, again, you're pouring energy into it that feels good, that feels refreshing, that feels like, feels right, and it feels lightweight and easy for you to do. And I promise you, the energy that you'll get back from it will feel even better. So that's another piece of advice that I would focus on while unemployed. Another piece of advice that I have not been doing a great job of, but I'm trying to be better at, is don't try and reinvent yourself during this process. Don't take on all these extra things because you feel like you have to, or because you feel like you have the extra time. Don't try to be perfect in all areas of your life. Like, I feel like I have focused so much on trying to self-care. It's like I overdo it and then I stress myself out. I'm like, I have to go to the gym 5 to 6 times a week. I have to eat healthy. I have to have this super perfect regimented routine, or else I will go crazy. When the reality is my brain is so focused on being unemployed that I don't really have the mental space to reinvent myself in all of these other areas of my life. Even if I technically have more physical time during my day, I don't have the mental time. I don't have the mental energy. So when I'm constantly trying to set these crazy routines for myself or set these crazy goals, I fail. And then I'm already feeling like a failure because I'm unemployed. And now I'm like, well, fuck, I can't even manage doing anything else with my time. So I just fucking suck. And that is a cycle that I have been going through over and over and over and over again in my head because I'm trying to do too much. Rewind to in 2020 when I was in the worst depressive episode of my life that lasted months. Something that I really had to get real with myself about is focus on the things that was really eating me alive. I've said this in a previous episode, but at that time, I was dealing with a major eating disorder. I was just depressed. I wasn't working out. I wasn't doing anything. I just was feeling like so just in a dark hole, right? And I was so unhappy with the way I looked in the mirror, like physically. I just was not taking care of myself. And I was so focused on like losing weight. I thought that was going to be like, oh, if once I lose weight, I will be happy. Once I feel better about how I look physically, all my other problems will go away. And so I would set these crazy goals to go on these crazy diets, which lasted maybe a week, if that, probably like 3 days. And then I would binge eat again, and the cycle of eating disorder behavior would continue. And I continued that pattern for months until I really just kind of looked myself in the fucking face for real. And I said, your body, your eating disorder, like there is a deeper rooted issue here that you're not addressing. And for me at the time was stability and financial stress. Fast forward 5 years, that's kind of where I'm at again. I really feel like that deep rooted issue for me is unemployment and finding a job. And until I fix that part of my life, or until I figure something out that will give me the stability again, I won't be able to fix all of these other things about myself. And that's just a personal thing. Maybe you are able to, and honestly, I'm fucking jealous. But for me, I'm not there. I know the thing that stresses me out by far the most on any given day, and the thing that touches every single other aspect of my life that I'm unhappy with, is the fact that I am unemployed. And that sucks because I have very little control over that. So what do I gotta do? I gotta focus on fucking finding a job. I have to focus on staying positive enough and motivated enough to show up for myself every day, to network, to put myself out there, to understand that, you know, all of these rejections and all of these really shitty things that keep happening to me in the job market, it's not a reflection of me necessarily, but maybe some of it is. And I have to get real with myself about that too. So yeah, I think that is a good way to end the episode. If you listened all the way through, thank you. And also sorry for crying and sorry for being an emotional fucking mess. Again, I don't know if you noticed, I didn't look at an outline or anything once because I couldn't write an outline. It didn't feel real. It didn't feel authentic. And, you know, I'm hoping this came out okay. I have to rewatch this and edit it. And I might be like, fuck, I have to re-record that. I hope not, but we'll see. But anywho, thanks for listening to another episode of Punchline. Again, sincerely from the bottom of my heart, this podcast has provided me with so much good mental energy. And it's all because of the people who listen to it. And so I'm very grateful. And I know I can speak for Drue in saying that as well. So yeah, if you're hiring, hit me up. I got like close to a decade of experience in marketing. I'm really fucking good at what I do. But other than that, some other things, make sure if you're listening on Spotify and you're enjoying this episode, give us a 5-star rating. That helps. If you're on YouTube, be sure to like and subscribe. And otherwise, yeah, we have a new episode dropping every Wednesday. So be sure to tune in next week for that. As you can tell, I'm like much better with Drue by my side on this. Like she knows all this shit and I'm just like blah, blah, blah. But yeah. I think that's all I got. So thanks again for listening to Punchline, and we will see you next Wednesday. Have a good week. Bye.